In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, April 1st, here in South Korea. Addressing the public in a live televised speech, President Yoon Suk-yeol reaffirms his commitment to expanding medical school admissions quota by 2,000 seats despite continued opposition from the medical arena. Meanwhile, the country's trade balance remains in positive territory for the 10th month in a row in March, posting $4.28 billion, largely on the back of stellar IT exports. And on the security front, Seoul's Defense Ministry hosts an opening ceremony earlier on this Monday to usher in a fresh chapter of national defense bolstered by artificial intelligence. We begin with the nearly 1 hour-long public address by President Yoon Suk-yeol broadcast live earlier on this Monday morning to touch upon his administration's prolonged standoff with the medical arena over healthcare reform. I have our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young standing by live on the line. Now, Soo-young, I believe President Yoon has firmly placed his foot down on intentions to expand medical school admissions quota by 2,000 seats. Do tell us more.
Yes, Sunny, you're exactly right. So the president made it pretty clear that he's not going to bow to unreasonable pressure as he made this very rare personal address to the public in a move to aid public understanding on the government's push to reform the medical sector, namely by adding an extra 2,000 students a year to medical schools. The policy, of course, has been vehemently opposed by thousands of junior doctors who have staged a walkout since late February, compromising medical service nationwide and forcing medical authorities to enforce emergency measures to stabilize the system. Now, the Yoon administration has been pushing to overhaul the current medical delivery system, which currently lacks sufficient doctors in essential and emergency care, particularly in already underserved regions outside Seoul. Now, Yoon said 2,000 additional students are the minimum number of entrants needed, saying that there has been sufficient inspections as well as consultations with medical schools and doctors. He noted that South Korea has a shortage of around 80,000 doctors, falling way below the OECD average of 3.7 clinicians per 1,000 people. And now that's despite the rate of increase in national medical expenses relative to GDP being 3 times higher than the OECD average over the past 6 years. And Yoon noted that it would actually take a decade for additional medical students to fully qualify as doctors, which means it would take more than 20 years for the number of doctors to actually increase by around 20,000. At the same time, he seemed to offer some room for negotiation, saying that he is willing to discuss more appropriate and reasonable measures if they are offered. Now, the president said that if the medical sector insists or continues to insist the number of additional medical students should be reduced, then they really do have to come up with more concrete science-backed evidence and present a unified set of measures to the government.
Right. And again, I hear he's also firmly denounced, that is, the collective action adopted by the medical arena, calling it, and I quote Soo-young, illegal and threatening to the lives and well-being of people here. What more can you tell us?
Yes, the president, he reiterated his warning to the doctors that they're actually violating South Koreans' right to life and health through the dereliction of their duties through collective action. Yoon said that as the state is constitutionally obliged to protect the lives and health of its citizens, doctors are licensed, therefore, to carry out this very heavy public duty. And today he noted that around 8,800 doctors are now facing a cancellation of their licenses. But he also offered a chance to end their illegal strike and return to their duties as well.
제가 대통령으로서 앞으로 수많은 국민의 생명을 구하고 또 수많은 국민의 건강을 지켜낼 여러분을 제재하거나 처벌하고 싶겠습니까? 여러분은 대한민국의 매우 중요한 미래 자산입니다. 국민이 여러분에게 거는 기대와 여러분의 공적 책무를 잊지 말아 주시기 바랍니다. 환자가 기다리고 있는 의료 현장으로 조속히 복귀해 주십시오.
He reiterated his commitment to implementing an all-out medical reform by launching a presidential committee this month to help form and initiate measures to make quality healthcare available all throughout the country and also fairly utilize and compensate medical workers as well. Back to you, Honey.
All right, Seong, thank you for that coverage. That was our Oh Seong with live coverage of the President's latest remarks regarding the standoff with the medical arena over healthcare reform. And speaking about the medical arena, seeking care is looking to become more challenging as outpatient services and surgeries will be greatly reduced amid the continued absence of junior doctors from hospitals. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
Medical schools, professors and general hospitals are reducing outpatient services and surgeries as of Monday. Because of the en masse walkout by trainee doctors 7 weeks ago, the medical professors keeping the hospitals running are suffering from increasing fatigue. Professors from 20 schools among 14 nationwide stated last Saturday that 1 day off will be mandatory after working continuously for 24 hours. They added that outpatient services and surgeries for the treatment of severe and emergency patients will be scheduled based on this rule. The Korean Medical Association, the biggest doctors group in the country, also announced doctors who run a private clinic will shorten their working hours to 40 hours per week. On Monday, the Health Ministry urged the medical community to withdraw their collective actions and reiterated its measures to keep the health system functioning.
Government will closely examine the operating of emergency rooms and strengthen the emergency medical system. The government will provide available personnel to the fullest and continuously monitor the professors' reduced working hours and resignations.
Meanwhile, 51% of the professors from the Big Five medical schools in Seoul have not yet submitted their resignations or disclosed their intentions. The Big Five hospitals refer to Seoul National University, Ulsan University, Yonsei University, Seongkyungwan University and Catholic University. At Seoul National University, 32%, around 450 out of its 1,400 professors have submitted or plan to submit their resignation letters. At Yonsei University, 48% have submitted the letters, and at Catholic University, about 48% have said they intend to resign. The professors who have submitted their resignations are continuing to work alongside patients until their resignations are processed. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Also, earlier on this Monday, Seoul's Defense Ministry hosted an opening ceremony to usher in a fresh chapter of national defense bolstered by artificial intelligence. Our correspondent Choi Min-jung covers the event.
South Korea's Defense Ministry has launched the Defense Artificial Intelligence Center to foster strong AI technology for use in future battlefields. The founding ceremony was held at the Agency for Defense Development on Monday, hosted by Defense Minister Shin Won-sik. The minister said the establishment of the Defense AI Center is a cornerstone for accelerating the creation of a scientific and technological powerhouse. He vowed to build an overwhelming national defense power that realizes peace through strength by securing core cutting-edge forces based on AI. The launch came as part of the country's Defense Innovation 4.0 initiative, which aims to develop a high-tech military based on AI and other cutting-edge technologies. The new center will serve as a platform to develop AI-based manned and unmanned systems of complex combat. A Defense Ministry official also explained the Defense AI Center will incorporate AI technology developed by private firms to introduce systems needed by the military. The ministry plans to prioritize using AI technology to improve the working environment experienced by soldiers as well.
In order to foster a strong AI and technology force in the future, we will perform our mission and role in an innovative and challenging manner as a think tank and R&D hub for the development of autonomous AI technology.
The Defense AI Center is comprised of some 110 people, consisting of private researchers with technical expertise and active duty soldiers with military expertise. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea will be attending NATO's foreign ministerial meeting this week. Now, South Korea has been invited to the meeting for the third straight year as one of the 4 partner countries in the Indo-Pacific region, including Japan, Australia and New Zealand. On the agenda during the 2-day meeting that begins Wednesday in Brussels is preparation for the NATO summit in Washington, D.C. in July. Now, this is the first ministerial meeting since Sweden became the 32nd member of the Security Alliance last month. In the city of Jerusalem, thousands of people took to the streets this past weekend to share their discontent with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the prolonged military confrontation against Hamas. Our Lee Sing-jae reports.
Weekend protests against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government grew even more on Sunday, with the Times of Israel reporting that around 100,000 Israelis rallied in front of the parliament. Protesters expressed their anger at the government for its prolonged war in Gaza without being able to eradicate Hamas or bring back the hostages taken by the militant group. The protesters also expressed anger towards the government's support of exempting ultra-Orthodox Jewish youth from military service. Others criticized the fact that the Prime Minister's son has not been in the country since the start of the Gaza conflict.
So what I'm doing here is trying to change the government, because this government is a complete and utter failure, and the only way they will lead us into the abyss that we will never come out of.
Protesters called for an early general election to remove Netanyahu from office. However, the Israeli Prime Minister argued, saying that if a general election were held now during the war, hostage negotiations with the government would be paralyzed for 6 to 8 months. Opposition leader and former Prime Minister Yair Lapid said that an early general election would not paralyze the government, arguing that Israel has already been paralyzed due to the ongoing war with Hamas and the lack of hostage negotiations. Sunday's massive gathering followed protests involving tens of thousands of Israelis from cities across the country on Saturday, leaving Netanyahu to grapple with one of the most serious threats yet to his coalition. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
The country's trade balance stayed firmly in positive territory in March as well, with strong IT exports keeping Korea's account in its favor. Our An Sung-jin has the latest.
South Korea's trade balance for March was in the black for the 10th consecutive month. Data from the Trade Ministry on Monday indicated that the figure hit $4.28 billion. This was led by a strong performance in exports, which were positive for the 6th straight month. Exports for March increased by 3.1% compared to the year before, reaching $56.56 billion. Meanwhile, imports dropped by 12.3%. Ship exports increased by more than 100%. And for the first time in 24 months, exports of all 4 IT subcategories, semiconductors, displays, computers, and peripheral devices saw an increase. In particular, semiconductor exports rose by nearly 40% on-year, reaching their highest value since June 2022. With the strong performance in IT exports, exports to IT retail and production hubs like Vietnam and Hong Kong rose. China was South Korea's largest export market overall, while the value of exports to U.S. surged to a record high. The trade minister pledged to continue this economic growth by providing 1 trillion won, or $743 million of support for exporting companies. He added that the trade balance is expected to keep seeing surpluses throughout the second quarter on the back of strong chip, car, and ship exports. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And staying on the trade front, exports of Korea's non-alcoholic beverages hit a record high last year. According to the Korea Agri-Fisheries Trade Corporation on Monday, export value of soft drinks amount to $572 million in 2023, up over 11% on year. Carbonated milk soda and shike rice drinks were among the most popular exports. By nation, exports to China were the highest, followed by the US, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And non-alcoholic beverage exports appear to be maintaining this trend, surging 28% on year in the first 2 months of 2024. Also in local news, a high-speed commuter train began partial operation this past weekend, pledging shorter travel time between Seoul and the greater metropolitan area. My colleague Park Gon-woo was on board.
Partial operation of Line A of the Great Train Express, or GTX, began on March 30th. According to the Transport Ministry, almost 19,000 people used the service, which runs between Seoul and the greater metropolitan area, on the first day, despite it being the weekend. That was around 2,000 people more than the ministry had projected.
I think the GTX will allow people from far places to commute more conveniently, and I think I can also consider a job flipping to other regions as well.
It was difficult to ride the bus with my child, but now with this train, I think I will be visiting Seoul more often.
Since the GTX-A line is now in operation from Suseok Southern Seoul to Dongtan in Gyeonggi-do Province, I'm going to check how long it actually takes from the moment I pass through the turnstile until I reach Dongtan. It took around 5 minutes to travel the 40 meters underground by escalator to the platform. Then it was just 20 minutes to Dongtan, a journey that would have taken around an hour by car or bus. With the train running at an average speed of around 110 kilometers per hour and up to a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour, the GTX is 2 to 3 times faster than a normal subway. As you can see, it took 30 minutes for me to get from Suseok to Dongtan Station. Trains usually run at 20-minute intervals, but that gap shortens to 17 minutes during peak hours, which is usually longer than normal subways, so checking train schedules is advised.
I wish the interval between trains becomes shorter at peak times.
The government said it would try to run more trains after the other parts of the A line are connected in order to reduce intervals. Some people also raised concerns about safety issues when riding the GTX.
I am a bit worried about accidents, as this is a high-speed train.
The Transport Ministry said the government will work on ways to address issues raised by citizens, with the Transport Minister also saying more employees will be deployed at each station to alleviate worries. He added he'll do his best so that other GTX lines, including the other part of the A line, will swiftly begin operation. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
And on a light note, the giant panda that was born in Korea's Everland theme park back in the summer of 2020 is moving to China this week. And fans had flocked in for final farewell early last month, including our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin, to take a look.
After 3 years and 8 months in Korea, FuBao, the beloved giant panda, will soon start a new chapter in China. The 3-year-old celebrity panda, the first offspring of Aibao and Lebao, is leaving her hometown Everland, Korea's largest theme park, on April 3rd. All cubs of pandas unleashed from China must return upon reaching sexual maturity, typically around 4 years old. FuBao's departure sparked a wave of emotion among her fans who flocked to say goodbye during her final days in public view. Some even waited for up to 7 hours. That's because FuBao has been at the center of Korea's panda fever.
Everland's YouTube channel, which uploads videos of FuBao, saw a surge of 450,000 new subscribers last year. Following the release of FuBao merchandise, the theme park recorded an operating profit of 66 billion won in 2023. I think a sensation is because FuBao is the first giant panda to be born in Korea.
Her bond with zookeepers, often called her grandpas, also played a big role.
FuBao's connection with the zookeepers is what resonated with people and made them like her even more.
Fans say her biggest charm is her personality.
FuBao is great at expressing her emotions. When she's angry, she might roll around. And when she's happy, she flashes this really joyful smile. So I sometimes wonder if there's a person inside her.
I think what I like to call FuBao's pure attitude towards life, such as her perseverance to eat bamboo or climb up a tree, somehow encourages and comforts people.
With FuBao's departure, there will be 4 giant pandas left in Korea. Parents Aibao, Lebao, and their twins Ruibao and Huibao. Everland is still packed with visitors waiting 1 to 2 hours just to catch a glimpse of the remaining 4 Bao family members. Those who are unable to bid farewell to FuBao in person can do so by looking at photos and writing messages. FuBao translates to a gift that brings happiness. For the past 3 years, she's brought great joy to Korea. Now, Korea wishes her a lifetime full of happiness. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, the South Pole has been warming 3 times faster than the rest of the world in recent years, and a team of Korean researchers have shared their own related explanation. Our Yoon reports.
In the South Pole, summer comes to an end in March, which is when the amount of sea ice in the region drops to its lowest. In 2022, the sea ice showed significant shrinkage, with its size dropping below 2 million square kilometers for the first time. But that record was broken last year, with the sea ice shrinking to 1.8 million square kilometers. Experts are projecting a new record low this year, as the South Pole had an even warmer summer, and in February, the sea ice area had already dropped below 2 million square kilometers.
The sea ice started to shrink rapidly starting around 2016, and this year we're also predicting a sharp decrease.
A team of South Korean researchers have uncovered in a study that it is warm airflow in the atmosphere that is causing warmer summers in the South Pole. In the Antarctic stratosphere, there are polar vortexes that rotate counterclockwise, which function as a kind of barrier to block warm air. But this vortex that grows in the winter months and weakens in early December has been collapsing earlier, year by year. And as the high pressure increases, this allows more warm air to flow.
The period when the polar vortex collapse occurs has gradually become earlier. With that, airflow in the troposphere also weakens, and more warm mid-latitude air could flow to the South Pole.
Global warming shrinks the sea ice, which decreases the amount of sunlight reflected, turning into a vicious cycle that accelerates climate change. The research team emphasized that in order to identify the root cause of the rapid collapse of polar vortexes, continuous monitoring and further climate change research is crucial. 이은진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. Türkiye's main opposition party, the Republican People's Party, declared victory on Sunday in municipal elections in the main cities of Ankara and Istanbul. According to preliminary results, Istanbul's incumbent mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, led by nearly 10 percentage points, delivering a heavy blow to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's AK party. Turkish broadcaster NTV reported on Sunday that the Republican People's Party, or CHP, had nearly 51% of the votes, with around 92% of the ballots counted in Istanbul, Turkey's largest city. In the capital, Ankara, CHP candidate Mayor Mansur Yavaş led with 59%, with 85% of the votes counted. The secular CHP was also on the course to win in multiple major cities, including Adana, Antalya, Bursa, and Izmir. State-run Anadolu Agency reported a voter turnout of around 76% from the 61 million people who are eligible to cast ballots for the metropolitan municipalities, district mayorships, and neighborhood administrations. In Japan, the country's health authorities searched 2 factories operated by Kobayashi Pharmaceutical over the weekend after the company reported 5 deaths potentially related to dietary supplements they produced. Officials from the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, as well as the city of Osaka officials, conducted the inspection after 5 people died and 114 were hospitalized as of Friday after taking the company's supplements. Kobayashi says toxic puberulic acid might have been produced by blue mold penicillium in beni koji, or red yeast rice material used in their products. The supplements were marketed as helping to lower cholesterol levels. Kazumasa Kobayashi, the company's CEO, apologized at a news conference on Friday and said it was investigating the health hazard related to their supplements. Christians around the world marked Easter Sunday, believed to be the day Jesus rose from the dead. At the Vatican's Easter event, Pope Francis greeted crowds in St. Peter's Square and was driven down to the river Tiber. The Vatican says some 60,000 people showed up. In the Belgian city of Antwerp, thousands of residents gathered in the Bogerhout district on Sunday to share a meal on a 2-kilometer-long table, an evening event which combined the celebrations of Christian Easter and Muslim Iftar. The dinner hosted up to 7,000 people, breaking the record for the longest community dinner table in Belgium. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Picture perfect weather to start out April. We had much brighter springtime sunshine to start out this morning, and temperatures are rising fast. Beware of big gaps in ratings of more than 15 degrees Celsius in many parts of the country today. A dry advisory is in place for east of Gangwon-do, so fire safety is a must in the area, but air quality will be decent nationwide. Have your sunglasses and a hat on when stepping outside. It will be quite sunny all day in most parts of the country. Seoul sees a high of 18 degrees Celsius, Busan, Jeju topping out at 20 degrees Celsius. Make the most of today's bright skies. We have rain in the forecast from Jeju tomorrow, spreading nationwide by Wednesday. Just a heads up, rain, which is forecast for 3 days this week on the south coast in Jeju, could knock cherry blossoms off. Meanwhile, temperatures stay on the warmer side this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.